I'm not talking about the brand of Disney. I'm talking about the shadow brand, the secondary brand of Disney. Okay, I'm gonna just have to explain it again. Follow me here. Wow. What's up, everybody? My name is Michael Stephenson. Welcome to my YouTube channel. You are currently watching my art/entertainment industry series in which I talk mainly about film, television with a sprinkling of book publishing, as well as music/recording. If this is your first time here, I would ask that you please go back and rewatch or watch for the first time some of my earlier videos. I do these sort of as episodes. They are numbered episodes. So some of the earlier videos I'm doing as foundational videos in which I'm trying to establish a particular lingo or language here for the channel so that we can have a shorthand so that later on in later videos I can hopefully make them shorter, as well as have that shorthand to where I could just say something like Avatar Era or The Lost Effect and you guys would just automatically know what it is I'm saying and what it is I'm talking about, and I don't have to explain myself again. So tonight, speaking of shorter videos, I'm hoping that this will be a much shorter video, seeing as how I really only have one legitimate sort of example of this. So what I wanted to talk about tonight is a thing that I don't know really if it is an actual concept or if I made this up. I'm fairly certain that I made this up myself, which, you know, I do from time to time, but I can't remember if this is actually a real concept or not, but it does seem to most certainly be a psychological thing, and that is shadow branding. So, shadow branding, what is it and how is it essentially used? Well, first off, it's not necessarily something that is used by companies, it seems, but in some ways it's actually used, I guess, against companies. It's oftentimes something that we as consumers tend to come up with about the various brands and companies and what have you that we interact with and that are customer forward facing, so to speak, public facing. It's both kind of hard to describe it without giving the example, which maybe this would be like a 7-minute video in that case, but I don't think I've seen a lot of things that don't have a type of shadow branding assigned to them these days. Almost everything has the straightforward brand of what the company wants you to think about that particular thing, that particular product or service. But then, to me, in my opinion, they have this shadow brand which sort of follows them around in the same way that I think of a shadow brand like Peter Pan's shadow. It has a life and a personality all its own, and so it can get into mischief and do all sorts of silly and ridiculous and crazy things all on its own, and it makes you think differently in some ways about the actual branding. And so when I think of shadow branding, I think of Avengers, the last Avengers film. So here's the thing. Some of you are going to think that this is one of maybe potentially the stupidest things that you've ever heard in your life, because it is so weirdly simple and simplistic, and in some ways it may sort of kind of treat people as if they're not the brightest people around, and yet we all should be able to make a space in our minds to where we can acknowledge that maybe this did somehow in some way play a bit of a role in what is happening with the Marvel brand and the MCU as a whole. Okay, so shadow branding, the best example that I can give of it is that of Avengers Endgame, specifically with the title. I know this is it for me. I know it on a conscious level, but I think that this might be affecting people on a subconscious level. The fact that they called the movie Endgame, that they put the word end in the title of the movie, I think that kind of, in many ways, ruined the brand going forward, so to speak. Let that sink in. Let it, sit with it for a little bit here. Listen, I know that it sounds stupid that just because they put the name or excuse me, the word end into the title, that a great majority of fans, of just regular fans, would kind of, in some ways, register in their minds subconsciously that, well, that was pretty much the end of Marvel. That was the end of the MCU, period. And yet, I think that is in many ways exactly what happened. I really do. So I think that almost all of the movies post Endgame, it's not even about their quality per se. It's not whether they are really good movies, really great movies, or really bad movies. I think more than anything, it's just that in some ways it almost feels like they are zombie movies. Like they are movies that exist in a franchise which is already dead and everybody knows that it's dead. Beginning with Spider-Man Far From Home and going forward with all of the films, it almost, in some ways, in some forms, it feels like on a subconscious level, people are subconsciously saying, their mind is telling them, why is this movie being made? Doesn't the franchise know that it's over, that it ended? It ended with the last Avengers film. Why do they keep making more of them? It's a zombie franchise. And it doesn't seem to matter how good any of the movies are. It almost in some ways feels like they are all going to be destined for heavy criticism. And even though Marvel seems to be batting 500 right now, to where you can argue that they've had at least 5 really good hits and 5 not so great films, it just feels like they are doing the absolute worst that they've ever done, and that they can't make a hit to save their lives. That's like the shadow branding right now, that Endgame, or the MCU and Marvel Entertainment as we know it, ended with Endgame. It ended with the death of Iron Man. It ended with the old age of Captain America. And I guess also in some ways, in some shape and form, and we don't talk about this very often, but it also kind of ended with the real life death of Stan Lee. All of those people slash characters are gone now. So why even continue to go on? I've been thinking about this for a very long time, because as I said, once Endgame hit, I knew from then on that I would not see another Marvel movie in theaters. I just and again, as I said, it was specifically because they put end in the title. I was just like, I remember thinking to myself how dumb that was, just on a business level, not even from an artist or entertainer's perspective. Because from an artist slash entertainer's perspective, yes, it makes sense that they would call it that they would name it Avengers Endgame to try to end Thanos. But from there, not only was the threat big enough for everybody to say, okay, we beat this threat, let's pack it in and let's all go home and never speak of this again, but it also felt like it was a legitimately true endpoint. And the fact that now we have to look at it as being just either not even a period, basically just like a semicolon or a comma in a sentence that just keeps going on and on and on, it's weird to me. It's very, I don't know. It just doesn't feel right. It almost doesn't. That's what it is. It doesn't feel right. It feels almost unjust in some way that the series continues forward after having defeated Thanos and after having gotten rid of Iron Man and Captain America. It just seems unjust. It seems like it's a wrong a wrongness in the world. And I can never seem to shake that idea either, to where every single time I see an Avengers, or excuse me, an MCU film, I always think to myself, yeah, why is this still here? Why is it still walking the earth? Eating at our brains. I don't know. I sincerely do think that because of using the word end, which we all know is the finale to anything, in the title of the film, that it has made everybody feel lackluster about anything that comes or that came afterward. Anything that came afterward. And to me, it's no wonder that the film that grossed the highest amount of money was a film seeping and soaked, soggy with nostalgia. Spider-Man No Way Home. It just has so much nostalgia for what was before the end, what came before the end, what in some ways what even existed before the MCU was a thing. It's almost like, God, I'm trying to think of a good example. It's almost like, I guess, in some ways, sitting down and with older people, they still have the physical copies of photo albums and stuff. So they take like some pictures, be around people, etc., slide them into a book, all that stuff. It's almost some ways like looking at that. That's what Spider-Man No Way Home felt like. Like after the funeral for a beloved family member or friend or whatever, you broke out the old photo albums and you sat down and you reminisced about all the amazing adventures and experiences and times that you had with them. That was what Spider-Man No Way Home felt like. And then you look at some of the other films and you're just like, zombies. Why are they around? Why do they exist? So to me, even the characters that we loved from the previous Marvel Cinematic Universe pre-Endgame, even those characters, they sort of feel ho-hum. They sort of feel just, like, yeah, I still like, God, I'm trying to think of a character. Yeah, I still like Star-Lord. I do. But would I be okay never seeing him in a movie again? Yeah, I guess I kind of would. I kind of would. It's weird because going back to it, we all know just how powerful certain psychological principles and things are. And we live currently in a world that all of us feel like it is steeped in propaganda. It's full of lies. People are constantly trying to sell us or convince us of things. And there's all this secret messaging. Was it back in the late 90s? The words were, or the phrase was, buzz marketing, where various brands and things, they would quietly insert their brand into a movie, and of course they would pay the producers and whatnot to get the movie made. But you'd see like a Ford truck, and one of the shots would just be the big Ford emblem, the Ford logo, right in your face. And it was like, oh, that's the buzz marketing. That's that sort of subliminal messaging that we are supposed to pick up on and have it in your mind, so that, oh man, I would really love to buy a Ford truck just for no reason, out of nowhere. I think that is in some ways what shadow branding is right now, is that consumers are looking at some of this stuff and potentially without realizing it, although I think they realize it at times, but without realizing it in a big way, they are being not brainwashed or controlled, but they're sort of molded to think a certain thing about these products, specifically about the MCU products. Is anybody else actually getting what I'm putting down here? Again, this is one of the few theories. It's a theory that I have that has not been like well thought out and very vetted and ruminated over for years and years and years, and uh, had logic and all this stuff applied to it. It's just something that I really kind of feel. I really do feel that this could be a thing, that this shadow branding is going on in the consumer's mind. Basically, it's sort of a secondary perception that we as consumers create in our own minds about a particular thing. And I know that it sounds incredibly stupid, but it sounds incredibly stupid, but I think that we are at a time in which words do matter. And putting end in the title can definitely make a lot of people, it can definitely gear your mind toward thinking that, okay, this is the final thing. It's going to be over after that. And so then when your mind is faced with having to somehow change or push past that idea that, yeah, this, even though they say that this is the end, that this is the end game, it wasn't the end. I don't know. I think there's a certain psychological gymnastics there that we have to look at. Listen, I don't know. I don't know if it is a thing or not. But I will say this. One of the things as a kid that weirdly enough always bothered me, and I never actually played this game, so I don't know if it's good or not. But one of the things that always bothered me when I was a little kid was the Final Fantasy series. like it was, it was freaking Final Fantasy 9 or something. And I'm like, Final Fantasy? Like, okay, I get it. This is Final Fantasy 9, but when are you guys actually going to put out the Final Fantasy? Well, how can you have 9 Final Fantasies? It just doesn't make any sense. It's like the end, and then you have a sequel to the end again. It just, and like I say, I know that we always like to think that the human mind is far better at processing information than that. And especially in this day and age, we are far more clued in and we're far more clued in and far more intelligent about not only psychological manipulation, but how our brains can potentially function around certain things and certain phrases and things that can, I guess, get us twisted or get us going and stuff like that. We're clued into how we can be manipulated and tricked and things of that nature. And yet, go online, go to some of the other channels here on YouTube, and you'll see that politically, on both sides, people are routinely tricked by stuff. And it doesn't even have to be some complex, super complicated thing. It can be super simple, and they're just like, I believe in that. Yeah. By putting end into the title of their film, there will always be in the back of my mind that wondering about, wow, I wonder if there are a lot of people who maybe they didn't register it consciously like I did. And they I made a conscious decision to go, okay, it says end game. That means that at least I'm never going to watch another Marvel movie in the theater, because that was the end. That was the one that ended it all for me. Unless they pay me, or unless they hire me, something like that. I have to be really wowed by something to go back to the theaters. I just wonder if other people registered that on a subconscious level, and they can't get it. They can't reconfigure their brain to think that, okay, after post Endgame, these other movies, they continue to tell the same story. And I almost in some instance wonder if this is also affecting the people within the MCU offices and stuff. The everything, everybody from the executives down to the writers and even the actors and actresses themselves. I wonder if they also, in some ways, are thinking about this consciously or subconsciously, because that might be one of the reasons as to why, and I already explored some other reasons, but in another video, but that might be potentially one of the reasons as to why the new MCU films don't feel as connected to each other, because everybody kind of looked around after Endgame and they said, yeah, that was pretty much it. That was the end. Yeah. So I don't know. It's just a theory. It's just a theory. I wonder what you guys think about it. Do you think that there's something to that? That every time you hear Marvel's Avengers Endgame, that it does something to you to where it's like almost every movie afterwards, even though it's not like they don't have any good movies after. They have plenty of good movies after Endgame, but does that do something to you to where it's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I want to see that. I don't like Marvel. All they do is put out garbage, blah blah blah, yada yada yada. Does it do anything to you, or are you completely unaffected by it? Have you ever even thought about this to begin with? Yeah. Anyways, I don't have a sign-off. So while I don't have an official sign-off yet, I guess I should do the whole please like, comment, share, and if you so desire and you want to see more, subscribe. But more importantly, I will ask that you please go and purchase one of my books. They are mostly ebooks, and pretty much they are all under $10. See if any of my work is actually any good, if it lives up to any of the things that I'm talking about here on my channel, specifically with the entertainment industry videos. So please go purchase my books. All of my links are down below. Thank you.